quiet. Before the dawn, night falls. The noise fades. The world begins to slow, but the mind still stirs, restless, searching for closure that never comes. We are taught to see morning as the beginning, yet every new day is born in the silence that precedes it. The night is not the end of effort, it is its refinement. Imagine the city lights dimming, the hum of the world softening into rhythm. In that silence, the Stoic awakens. Marcus Aurelius would sit alone before the night, not to escape the day, but to prepare for the next. The happiness of your life, he wrote, depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And the night is when those thoughts are forged, when reason takes back command from impulse and order replaces noise. Modern neuroscience confirms what the ancients intuited. The final thoughts before sleep shape the chemistry of the following morning. The brain, through a process called cognitive priming, continues to process and rewire itself long after consciousness fades. What you focus on before rest becomes the foundation upon which tomorrow's mind is built. This is why the Stoics considered night sacred. It was the unseen half of discipline, the rehearsal before the act. The wise understood that you do not begin your day when the sun rises, but when you decide, in the stillness of evening, who you will be when it does. So as darkness deepens, ask yourself, what am I rehearsing for? What patterns will I strengthen in my sleep? For the quiet before the dawn is not absence, it is preparation. It is the still point where tomorrow's victory begins to take form. If the morning is your test, the night is your preparation. The mind that never sleeps. When the eyes close, the world does not end. The mind continues its quiet labor, weaving meaning from fragments of thought, emotion, and memory. The Stoics believed that the soul never truly rests, that even in sleep, the rational part of us continues its dialogue with the universe. And now, centuries later, neuroscience has found their intuition to be true. During the night, the brain enters a state of profound restoration. The hippocampus replays the day's moments, deciding which to keep and which to release. Emotional imprints are filed away, lessons are reinforced, and neural connections are strengthened or pruned. Joe Dispenza calls this the rehearsal of consciousness, the brain rehearsing the self it will awaken as. You are not merely resting, you are reprogramming. Every image, every thought you entertain before sleep becomes a seed dropped into the soil of the subconscious. If you end your day in anger, fear, or distraction, your mind will nurture those seeds through the night. But if you end it with reflection, gratitude, or clarity, you awaken with calm power. The Stoics practiced this deliberately. Before sleep, they would align thought with virtue, ensuring the subconscious would labor for order, not chaos. Marcus Aurelius understood this invisible work. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Neuroscience echoes this. The brain's plasticity never stops. Even as you dream, your neurons whisper the story of who you're becoming. So the question is not whether your mind works while you sleep. It does. The question is, what have you given it to work on? Because the night, too, is a form of training. And the sleeper who prepares with intention wakes not to chaos, but to command. What you dwell on before sleep becomes the architect of your next dawn. The Stoic evening ritual. At night, the world exhales. The noise of the day loses its hold, and what remains is you, unmasked, unhurried, and faced with the quiet truth of your own mind. This is where the Stoics' discipline begins, not in public triumphs, but in private reckonings. Seneca described this as the retrospectio, the sacred act of reviewing the day before surrendering to rest. He wrote that each night he asked himself 3 questions. What weakness did I overcome? What impulse did I master? What duty did I neglect? These were not confessions of guilt, but conversations with the self. For the Stoic, reflection was not punishment, it was progress. By examining the day, he transformed mistakes into teachers and habits into instruments of virtue. Modern neuroscience now validates this ancient ritual. Studies on meta-awareness, the capacity to observe one's thoughts without judgment, show that reflection rewires the brain's prefrontal circuits, strengthening self-control and emotional regulation. To think consciously about your choices before sleep is to train the neural architecture of wisdom. This nightly practice has a quiet power. As the Stoics knew, the unexamined day becomes the unexamined life. Each moment left unreflected grows into a pattern that rules you. But through reflection, chaos is organized. The mind learns to distinguish between what belongs to it and what does not. The day's noise is filtered through reason and transformed into order. Seneca called this the audit of the soul. You are both the ruler and the ruled, the teacher and the student. And through honest observation, the mind becomes its own governor. The Stoic understood that strength begins in recognition, that to command oneself, one must first witness oneself. So tonight, before surrendering to sleep, take a moment to look inward. Not to condemn the day, but to reclaim it. For reflection is not memory, it is mastery. It is the mind shaping its own tomorrow in silence. Examine the day, not to condemn it, but to command the next. The weight of unfinished thought. There are nights when the body lies down, but the mind refuses to follow. Thoughts circle like restless birds, fragments of tasks, words unsaid, things left undone. You close your eyes, yet the inner dialogue continues its endless motion. This is not insomnia, it is the cost of unfinished thinking. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that disorder in the mind is born not from fate, but from neglect. Epictetus warned, "No man is disturbed by things, but by his opinion of them." The thoughts we leave unresolved do not disappear, they linger, demanding closure. Each one becomes a quiet signal in the nervous system, keeping the body alert even in darkness. Modern cognitive science names this the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of the brain to keep unfinished tasks active until they are completed or consciously released. The default mode network, that inner chatter of self-referencing thought, loops endlessly around open concerns. The mind becomes a labyrinth of unclosed doors, and the longer they remain open, the heavier they grow. Seneca advised writing down each worry before sleep, not to solve it, but to confine it. In doing so, he gave form to the formless, turning anxiety into ink, thought into order. Neuroscience affirms this ritual. The simple act of externalizing thought decreases neural load, freeing working memory. The pen becomes a key that unlocks stillness. Unfinished thoughts are like debts. They accumulate interest in the currency of peace. To sleep well is to live deliberately, to face each lingering demand and decide, does this belong to me now, or can it wait until morning? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The act of writing, organizing, or even naming a thought reclaims that power. Before the night ends, the Stoic clears the table of the mind. He arranges his day, forgives its flaws, closes its chapters. Only then can rest become restoration instead of escape. A restless night is not born of noise, but of unfinished meaning. To rest deeply, you must first lay your burdens down in order. The brain's transition to stillness. As the night deepens, the body begins a sacred descent, from tension to calm, from vigilance to surrender. But peace does not simply arrive, it must be allowed. The Stoics knew that tranquility was not a gift of fortune, but the result of practice. It was an art, one in which body and mind move together toward harmony. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." To him, stillness was not the absence of movement, it was mastery over it. The modern world seeks stillness through exhaustion, collapsing into rest after chaos. But the Stoic seeks it through intention, by entering night as a disciplined transition, not a desperate escape. Modern neuroscience illuminates the same path. As darkness falls, the brain begins shifting from the fast electrical rhythms of alertness, beta waves, to slower restorative states, alpha and theta. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason and self-awareness, gently relinquishes command, allowing the body's natural systems of recovery to take over. Yet this transition is fragile. If the mind remains charged with stimulation, the body mirrors its tension. Andrew Huberman describes this relationship as state control. When the eyes meet dim light and breathing slows, the vagus nerve activates, signaling the parasympathetic system, the body's internal brake. Heart rate decreases. Cortisol production subsides. The mind and physiology synchronize into peace. This is not passive relaxation. It is deliberate regulation. The Stoics anticipated this harmony without scientific language. They spoke of it as alignment with nature, the understanding that peace is not conquered, but tuned into. Just as a warrior sheathes his sword at dusk, the disciplined mind puts away the weapons of thought, judgment, worry, comparison. It does not resist rest. It commands it. Joe Dispenza reminds us that intention changes biology. When you breathe deeply, slow your heartbeat, and release control, your brain rewires associations, teaching itself that stillness is safe, not idle. The Stoic understood the same truth. Detachment is not indifference. It is composure born from wisdom. So before you close your eyes tonight, remember that peace is not something to be found. It is something to be practiced. Breathe, align, release. The day was your battle. The night is your retreat. Peace is not a gift. It's a physiological practice. The discipline of closure. There is a silent kind of strength in knowing when a day is complete. The Stoics called it autarkia, self-sufficiency of the mind. To them, closure was not merely ending the day. It was sealing it with intention. A day without closure leaks energy into tomorrow. A day examined, concluded, and accepted becomes a foundation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do what is necessary. Everything else is distraction." Each night he drew a line between what belonged to him and what did not. This was not withdrawal, but precision. The discipline of directing one's attention toward what can be acted upon and releasing what cannot. Modern psychology gives this a name: the completion effect. The mind, when deprived of closure, keeps unfinished goals alive, creating subtle tension that drains focus and sleep. But when a task is consciously acknowledged as complete, even if imperfectly, the brain releases it. In the modern world, most of us never close the day. We drift through our evenings as extensions of work, scrolling, reacting, absorbing noise until exhaustion forces us to stop. This is not rest, it is surrender. The Stoics saw it differently. They believed every ending should be deliberate, a small act of sovereignty over time itself. To stop by choice is to affirm mastery. To stop only when forced is to confess slavery. Neuroscience explains why. When we consciously signal the end of effort, through reflection, writing, or even a single deep breath of recognition, the prefrontal cortex sends inhibitory signals to stress circuits, reducing cortisol and restoring cognitive clarity. Huberman describes this as a neurochemical reset, allowing the nervous system to transition from drive to restoration. Closure, then, is not symbolic. It is biological. Seneca practiced this nightly. He said, "The mind must be given rest, but rest through order, not neglect." His ritual was to sit quietly, review his duties, forgive his errors, and decide what would carry forward. Nothing unexamined was permitted to follow him into sleep. This, he believed, was the mark of a free man, one who governs his own time instead of being consumed by it. To finish the day consciously is to say, "I have done enough for now." That single statement is not weakness, it is wisdom. For without closure, the weight of unfinished business follows you like a shadow into every new morning. The disciplined man ends his day before the day ends him. Without closure, you carry yesterday into tomorrow. The architecture of routine. The word has been misunderstood. The modern mind equates it with monotony, but to the Stoics, routine was the architecture of virtue, the silent scaffolding that holds the self upright when emotion wavers. Musonius Rufus taught that consistency is not confinement, it is cultivation. Through repetition, the soul learns order, and through order, it becomes free. Each night was a rehearsal in this discipline. The Stoics saw the evening not as a random sequence of habits, but as a sacred ritual, a deliberate closing of the circle of reason. What you do before sleep is not trivial. It is an offering to your future self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At day's end, remember what has been done and what remains. Be neither proud nor ashamed, but aware." That awareness is the cornerstone of self-command. Modern neuroscience mirrors this wisdom. The brain thrives on predictable rhythms, not out of laziness, but efficiency. Every repetition strengthens synaptic connections, embedding actions into neural pathways. Huberman calls this behavioral automation. Once trained, the brain performs complex acts with minimal effort, freeing consciousness for higher thought. Routine, then, is not the death of creativity, it is its foundation. A structured night creates the space for an unshaken mind. Seneca compared routine to a craftsman's repetition. The sculptor strikes the marble not once, but 1,000 times, each blow refining the form within. So too does the disciplined man refine his mind with each nightly act of reflection, writing, preparation, and stillness. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's continual reshaping through practice. The Stoics simply called it virtue, but routine demands reverence. When done without intention, it decays into habit. When done consciously, it becomes ritual. The difference lies in awareness. A habit is unconscious repetition. A ritual is repetition charged with meaning. The Stoic knew this, that the simplest actions, performed deliberately, can transform the ordinary into the sacred. Every night, the wise man rebuilds his internal architecture. He clears his desk, orders his mind, prepares his tools, and thanks nature for one more chance to serve. The act is small, but the impact is vast. Through routine, chaos finds boundaries. Through repetition, discipline becomes identity. Discipline is not repetition, it's refinement. The dopamine reset. Modern life is a symphony of stimulation. Screens, notifications, headlines, and endless noise disguised as urgency. Each moment offers another hit of novelty, another brief illusion of satisfaction. But beneath it all lies fatigue, the exhaustion of a mind that never stops chasing the next spark. The Stoics saw this same hunger in Rome's crowded streets, the merchants, the banquets, the distractions of the crowd. Seneca warned, "He who cannot be content with less will never be satisfied." Centuries later, neuroscience confirms what Seneca sensed. Dopamine, the molecule of pursuit, does not create pleasure. It drives anticipation. Every scroll, every one more look, every late-night urge to check, triggers this chemical whisper that promises fulfillment but never delivers it. Andrew Huberman explains that when dopamine is repeatedly spiked without effort, the brain's baseline levels drop. Pleasure dulls. Motivation dies. The mind confuses rest with withdrawal, and silence becomes unbearable. The Stoics called this state tyranny by desire. They saw it not as moral weakness, but as enslavement to illusion, the endless reaching for what does not restore. To them, real peace begins when the will learns to say, "Enough." Musonius Rufus wrote, "Luxury poisons the soul, for it teaches dependence." In neuroscience, the same truth wears a modern name: desensitization. The brain, overwhelmed by stimulation, requires more to feel less. The cure is not more pleasure, but its regulation. To reset dopamine is to reclaim autonomy. Huberman suggests cycles of intentional restraint, abstaining from late-night screens, sugar, or constant noise. When stimulation decreases, sensitivity returns. What was once dull becomes vibrant again. The Stoic practiced this intuitively, fasting from comfort, training endurance through moderation. Seneca called it practicing poverty, not as suffering, but as rehearsal for freedom. Joe Dispenza expands this idea through neurochemistry. Each act of restraint teaches the brain to find satisfaction in awareness itself, not in reward. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, begins to override the craving centers of the midbrain. Discipline becomes pleasure. Stillness becomes reward. To live this way is not to reject joy, but to purify it. When the mind no longer craves excess, it discovers depth. The quiet of night becomes a sanctuary instead of a void. Desire no longer commands attention. attention commands desire. The Stoic found happiness not in possession, but in perception, in seeing that peace was never missing, only buried beneath too much. Sleep begins not when the eyes close, but when the mind stops chasing. To crave less is to feel more. The virtue of preparation. The Stoics believed that every great victory is won twice, once in the mind and once in the world. Marcus Aurelius prepared for dawn not by planning his conquests, but by rehearsing his conduct. Before sleep, he would write or meditate on the day to come, the people he might meet, the challenges that might arise, the temptations that might test his principles. This was not worry, it was readiness. The man who has anticipated misfortunes, Seneca said, meets them with greater strength. In their eyes, forethought, premeditatio, was not the denial of uncertainty, but its mastery. To imagine adversity was not pessimism, it was training. The Stoic prepared his mind as a soldier sharpens his blade, not to summon fear, but to blunt its surprise. When the morning arrived, he was already armed in awareness. Modern neuroscience describes this process in astonishingly similar terms. Mental rehearsal, the act of visualizing future challenges and responses, activates the same neural pathways as the experience itself. The prefrontal cortex simulates action, the motor cortex engages, and the limbic system stabilizes under predicted stress. Huberman calls this cognitive priming. The body and mind become familiar with what is to come, and thus remain calm when it arrives. Joe Dispenza expands further, explaining that by consciously rehearsing thoughts and behaviors aligned with purpose, we shape the brain's chemical future. The mind, unable to distinguish between visualization and reality, begins to embody the state we intend. This is not imagination, it is neuroplastic preparation. The Stoic called it virtue. Science calls it adaptation. Both recognize that the future belongs to those who prepare in peace rather than react in panic. Before sleep, the Stoic closed his eyes not to escape the world, but to construct it. He rehearsed the next day with moral precision, deciding how to speak, how to act, how to endure. The aim was not control over events, but control over self. Seneca warned that those who face each day unprepared are unarmed before fortune. To prepare is to honor the future, not fear it. It is to look ahead with reason, not anxiety. To transform uncertainty into purpose. The Stoic did not pray for an easy dawn. He prayed for clarity of mind. That was his true armor. The wise man conquers the future by imagining it calmly. The mirror of the mind. Each night, the Stoic stood before an invisible mirror, not of glass, but of conscience. Seneca called this practice retrospectio, the art of self-examination without self-condemnation. When the light has been removed, he wrote, and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and measure my actions by the standard of virtue. This was not an exercise in guilt, but in governance. The wise man does not punish himself for imperfection. He studies it to refine his nature. To the Stoics, reflection was an act of purification. It was the mental equivalent of washing the dust from the body after a long journey. Epictetus urged his students to treat the mind as they would a tool, to inspect it nightly, remove what has rusted, and sharpen what has dulled. Without reflection, the self becomes opaque, clouded by emotion and habit. Through reflection, the soul becomes transparent again. Modern psychology and neuroscience affirm this ancient ritual. Daniel Goleman's research on emotional intelligence shows that self-awareness, the ability to observe one's thoughts and feelings without being ruled by them, is the cornerstone of mental health and leadership. In this moment of introspection, the brain's prefrontal cortex activates, regulating emotional circuits and quieting the noise of the amygdala. The act of observing transforms the reaction into understanding. Joe Dispenza refers to this as metacognition, the mind's ability to think about its own thinking. By reviewing our day before sleep, we interrupt automatic patterns and give consciousness the chance to rewrite them. What was once reflex becomes reflection. What was once compulsion becomes choice. Each night, the brain reorganizes its neural architecture according to what we focus on. When we reflect with clarity, we are literally shaping tomorrow's mind. But the Stoics went deeper still. They believed reflection was not only a mental act but a moral one, an opportunity to realign with nature, to recall that we are part of something larger than our private concerns. Hierocles spoke of expanding circles of concern, first the self, then family, community, humanity, and the cosmos. Reflection begins at the center, but its purpose is to widen awareness outward. The mirror of the mind does not accuse, it illuminates. It reveals where you lived by reason and where you fell to impulse, where you were kind and where you withheld compassion. The goal is not perfection, but coherence, to live as one continuous being, not a fragmented collection of contradictions. A clear conscience is the best pillow. The emotional reset. No day ends without residue, words unsaid, mistakes remembered, emotions carried like invisible weights into the night. Seneca called this the greatest thief of rest, not exhaustion, but emotional unrest. Anger, fear, and grief, he wrote, cling to the mind like shadows to the body. The Stoics understood that without cleansing emotion, reason cannot rule. To sleep without reconciliation is to invite chaos into the kingdom of the mind. The evening, then, is not a time to replay wounds, but to release them. The Stoic did not suppress his feelings, he refined them. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "You will meet the ungrateful, the deceitful, the selfish, yet they act from ignorance, not malice." With this understanding, he turned resentment into pity, frustration into patience. His was not emotional coldness, but emotional sovereignty. Modern neuroscience has discovered the same alchemy through the study of emotional regulation. Daniel Goleman's research shows that labeling an emotion, simply naming anger, fear, or sadness, decreases activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat center. In doing so, the prefrontal cortex regains command. Awareness transforms reaction into response. What ancient philosophy called mastery of passion, modern science calls neuroregulation. Both are acts of inner order. Joe Dispenza describes this nightly transformation as reprogramming the body's chemical memory. When emotions are repeated, the body becomes addicted to them. Anger becomes identity. Anxiety becomes familiarity. To consciously let go is to reclaim authorship over your internal chemistry. Each time you breathe through irritation or forgive before sleep, you are breaking a neural chain, teaching the body that peace is safe. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom begins here, not in control of events, but in the ability to meet emotion with intelligence. To forgive is not to erase the past, but to refuse it the power to poison the present. To breathe is to reclaim command from chaos. Goleman calls forgiveness the highest form of emotional intelligence. The Stoics called it alignment with nature, an understanding that anger toward the inevitable is wasted energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Science affirms this truth. Compassion activates oxytocin, soothing the nervous system and strengthening resilience. So each night, before the world fades to black, let the mind unclench its fist. Let the heart loosen its armor. To rest well, you must forgive yourself and the day. The body's dialogue with the mind. The Stoics knew that philosophy was not confined to the mind. It lived in the body, in the breath, in posture, in stillness. "The soul takes on the color of its thoughts," wrote Marcus Aurelius, "and the body reflects the state of the soul." The ancient philosophers practiced composure not only as an idea, but as a discipline of the flesh. They understood that calmness could be trained through the body's language long before science could measure it. Epictetus taught that the first sign of a philosopher was not in speech, but in presence. His students learned to sit upright, to breathe deeply, to walk deliberately, because every movement shaped the mind that performed it. Modern neuroscience now calls this embodied cognition, the principle that the body and brain are a single system, communicating through a constant exchange of electrical and chemical signals. How you stand, breathe, and move is how you think. Andrew Huberman explains that slow nasal breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the biological counterpart of Stoic tranquility. It lowers cortisol, steadies the heart, and quiets the amygdala. When the body signals safety, the mind follows. Likewise, posture influences neurochemistry. An open chest increases serotonin and confidence, while slumped shoulders reinforce defeat. In every gesture, the nervous system whispers a story, one you can rewrite through awareness. Joe Dispenza calls this the bridge between physiology and philosophy. The breath is thought made tangible, the place where spirit becomes chemistry. When you breathe with intention, you are sending instructions to the brain. I am safe, I am centered, I am in command. Neuroscience confirms what Stoicism intuited, that you cannot think your way into peace, you must embody it. Seneca would say, the mind is like the sea, it grows calm when the winds within it subside. To still the winds, the Stoics slowed their breath, steadied their gaze, and released tension with awareness. They trained their nervous system as they trained their reason, patiently, deliberately, daily. Modern psychology finds that this synchronization between body and mind enhances interoception, the awareness of internal states. Those who practice mindful breathing or posture control show higher emotional stability and clarity of thought. The Stoic did not have fMRI scans, but he understood that to master life, one must first master the vessel that carries it. To breathe consciously is to think clearly. To move with awareness is to live with intention. Every slow inhale becomes a reminder of power. Silent, grounded, undeniable. The body speaks, the mind listens, and in that dialogue, peace is born. The night is training. To the Stoics, the night was never a pause from discipline, it was its continuation. When the world withdrew into silence, the philosopher entered his laboratory of thought. Seneca wrote, "The day's failures are the night's teachers." Each evening was an opportunity to transform experience into strength, to forge the mind in reflection, the way a blacksmith tempers iron in the quiet after flame. Modern neuroscience confirms that the mind does not rest when we sleep, it trains. During deep sleep and REM cycles, the brain consolidates memories, rehearses emotions, and strengthens neural pathways created by our waking thoughts. Andrew Huberman calls this offline learning, the brain's process of integrating the day's patterns into tomorrow's behavior. The Stoics had already intuited this 2,000 years earlier. They believed that what we meditate on before sleep becomes the architecture of the next dawn. Joe Dispenza teaches that the mind, before sleep, enters a highly suggestible state, a threshold between wakefulness and dreaming, where the subconscious absorbs impressions without resistance. The Stoic used this moment not for entertainment, but for elevation. As others sought distraction, he rehearsed virtue. He envisioned himself calm under pressure, just in action, steady in hardship. In the neural theater of imagination, he lived tomorrow before it began. Epictetus called this the art of premeditatio, mental rehearsal guided by reason. Neuroscience echoes his wisdom. Visualization activates the same brain regions as real experience. To imagine courage is to train it. To picture patience is to wire it into the nervous system. Sleep then becomes not escape, but education, the unconscious refining of conscious intention. Marcus Aurelius approached each night as an athlete of the mind. His journal was not vanity, but training. He wrote not to record life, but to shape it, imprinting gratitude, discipline, and perspective into his psyche. He prepared for sleep the way a general prepares for dawn, calmly, strategically, with clarity of mission. Psychology now describes this as neuroplastic rehearsal, repeating mental patterns to reprogram the self. The Stoics did not name neurons or synapses, but they understood the principle that repetition transforms reflection into instinct. What begins as deliberate effort becomes automatic virtue. The night, then, is not rest from discipline, but its silent perfection. It is where reflection becomes wiring, where thought becomes temperament. The day trains the will, the night trains the soul. Every thought you plant before sleep grows roots in the unseen soil of your subconscious, emerging at dawn as action, mood, and choice. The warrior of the mind ends the day as he begins it, awake. Even in darkness, he trains. For the Stoic knows, tonight's thoughts are tomorrow's instincts. The power of anticipation. Marcus Aurelius began each day prepared for disappointment. You will meet the ungrateful, the deceitful, the arrogant, he wrote, not as pessimism, but as protection. To the Stoics, forethought was not worry, it was armor. The wise man expected challenge, not because he feared it, but because he understood its inevitability. By meeting adversity first in thought, he met it calmly in life. Modern psychology calls this cognitive inoculation, the process of mentally rehearsing difficulty to reduce its emotional impact when it arrives. The brain, when exposed to imagined adversity, begins to desensitize its fear circuits, particularly in the amygdala. Andrew Huberman explains that anticipation triggers the same neural networks as real stress, allowing the mind to adapt before reality tests it. The Stoics mastered this thousands of years before neuroscience gave it a name. Seneca wrote that fortune often strikes hardest those it surprises. The man who has anticipated every blow, he said, feels it less. This practice of premeditating adversity, premeditatio malorum, was not fatalism, but freedom. By confronting the worst mentally, they robbed it of its sting physically. The Stoic did not live in dread of what could go wrong. He trained to stay composed when it did. Joe Dispenza's research aligns perfectly with this principle. Visualization, when performed with awareness, rewires the brain's emotional responses. Imagining calm under pressure teaches the nervous system that it is possible. The prefrontal cortex learns to override the amygdala's panic before real crisis arises. Neuroscience thus confirms what Stoicism practiced, that preparation is the seed of composure. Jordan Peterson calls this voluntary confrontation of chaos. By choosing to imagine what you fear, you transform fear into focus. Avoidance breeds fragility. Confrontation breeds strength. Each night, as you prepare for the coming day, you have a choice: to hope vaguely or to prepare precisely. Hope without discipline invites anxiety. Preparation without fear breeds confidence. Marcus Aurelius practiced this mental rehearsal nightly. He would visualize insult, failure, pain, or loss, and then remind himself, none of these touch my reason. By running through the theater of adversity before it arrived, he conditioned his mind to act with steadiness, not surprise. His strength did not come from control over circumstance, but from anticipation guided by wisdom. Psychologically, this transforms the unknown from threat to terrain. When the mind has already walked the road of hardship in thought, it recognizes its path in reality. Emotional reactivity gives way to strategy. Panic becomes patience. The Stoic night, therefore, was not filled with wishful thinking, but with preparation. He rehearsed virtue like a soldier sharpens his blade before battle, not out of fear, but readiness. When dawn came, nothing could catch him unguarded, because he had already lived it in the quiet rehearsal of thought. The disciplined sleeper wakes already victorious, not because the world is easier, but because his mind is prepared to meet it. The sovereignty of night. When the world grows silent and the lights dim, the mind faces itself, stripped of noise, stripped of disguise. Night is not merely the absence of day, it is the return to truth. The Stoics saw darkness not as emptiness, but as the kingdom of reflection, the unseen empire where the will is crowned and tested. As you lay down to rest, wrote Marcus Aurelius, consider how your soul has used the day. To end the day consciously is to live as a sovereign, not a servant. In that stillness, power changes form. It is no longer the power to move, to achieve, to control. It becomes the power to surrender wisely, to let go of the day's noise, to forgive what went wrong, to accept what could not be changed. Seneca said that sleep is the rehearsal of death, and to sleep well, one must die daily to distraction and unrest. In surrender, the Stoic did not lose himself. He recovered himself. Modern neuroscience paints the same picture in the language of biology. As the mind releases control, the brain enters synchronization. Slow delta waves cleansing the neural landscape. Memory integrates. Emotion stabilizes. The body restores. Sleep is not idleness. It is the rebuilding of the empire within. Andrew Huberman notes that deep rest refines focus, strengthens willpower, and renews neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reshape itself through experience. Thus, discipline by night becomes clarity by dawn. Joe Dispenza calls this the quantum reset, the dissolution of old emotional patterns as the mind drifts into the timeless. In the space between waking and dreaming, identity softens and a new self begins to form. What you think, feel, and release before sleep becomes the blueprint of who you will be tomorrow. Science confirms what philosophy felt. Transformation begins not in noise, but in silence. The Stoic understood this sacred rhythm. Each night was a ritual of alignment, body, mind, and logos. To sleep with intention was to live with mastery. Marcus Aurelius did not seek perfection, only presence. He would forgive himself for what remained undone, give thanks for what had been possible, and entrust the rest to nature. In this act, philosophy became prayer, a dialogue between mortal will and divine order. Jordan Peterson speaks of walking the line between chaos and order. The Stoic walked it in silence each night, balancing effort with surrender. He had fought the day's battles with discipline and ended them with peace. He ruled the mind as one rules a kingdom, through law and mercy, through vigilance and rest. To close the eyes in awareness is not weakness, it is wisdom. The night is not escape, it is ascension. In its quiet vastness, you are reminded that power does not shout. It breathes, it waits, it endures. Tomorrow's victory is written in tonight's discipline.